Just disbelief, and we all thought he was mad. And then we thought the whole world is mad that they're allowing a madman to get away with this. But then you could say about Donald Trump today, same thing.
Welcome to Expulsion at 50, my podcast series documenting the expulsion of Ugandan Asians from a diversity of angles and perspectives. My name is Dolavasani. Between 1972 and 1975, an estimated 80,000 Asians fled Uganda. The majority ended up in the UK as refugees. Others went to Canada, India, Kenya, the United States, and various other European countries. In July 2020, I had the pleasure of speaking to Ashok Talati from his home in Florida. This is his story.
My father's family came from Porbandar, which is in Gujarat. I was born in Kampala, Uganda, and I'm an only child. I'm second generation African, in that my mother and all her family are also grew up in East Africa. Her entire family lived in Tanzania. And until the age of 16, I lived in Kampala. My dad was a school teacher, so every few years I would change schools. So I went through all the primary schools in Kampala. And then for 4 years, I was at Kalolo Secondary School. After O levels, I continued with my A levels in Kampala in the same school.
And at Kololo, Ashok, was it mixed?
Yes, Kalolo was mixed. So we had English and British and American teachers, and we had Asians, and we had some black teachers as well, and students as well. The majority were Indians, but we had a few, like 10 or 20% who were black, and then we had a small minority who were white. We were multiracial. We were mixed. We lived near Kalolo School on Kira Road. So we lived in the Bukoto flats, 3-story building. So among the 6 flats, we had 2 white people, 4 black, 3 black, and us. So the actual building we lived in, we were the only Indians. But all around us, we had Indian neighbors. So once you got out of our house, you could go into the forests. So when I was 13, 14, 15, we would climb up one of the hills behind us, and you would see very few people there. And from our house, you could also do hikes to the Wireless Hill, which was the best views of Kampala. And from our house, you could also walk to Lugogo Stadium. So we would go and play tennis at either Kalolo Secondary School or Lugogo. And we had access to 2 swimming pools. There was one in Kalolo and one at Silver Springs. Once we came home, we would do some homework, and then we'd just go outside, and we had a cricket ground, a soccer ground, tennis courts. Growing up at that time, we had the Elvis Presley and Beatles songs. Or Sugar Sugar was the main one. We kept listening to I Can't Get No Satisfaction, Rolling Stones. And there were so many teenage boys and girls around the area when we just hang out with them. Close-knit community. And at least in my friend circle, it was an age of innocence. Like there was no cigarettes, no alcohol, no sex. It was, we were just simple kids. You never heard of anybody getting kidnapped or molested. Very safe. We also, as a family, went to Entebbe once a month, like a picnic. enjoy the beaches, go to the swimming pool by a nice hotel. So when I was 15 and 16, I have traveled a lot over Uganda, almost all of it by car, to Murchison Falls, to Kabale, which they call the Switzerland of Uganda. Uh, like I want to say, I've seen Uganda more than most kids. And then my vacations, uh, as a teenager, my parents always sent me to Nairobi, Mombasa, and Dar es Salaam.
And how did you get there?
So we always went by a train from Kampala to Nairobi, and then Nairobi to Mombasa was either a flight or a train. And the way the system worked with the Indians there was inevitably at the train station, they would find somebody they would know, or they would just, and they would just say, just keep an eye on him. And then when I got to Nairobi, my uncle would be waiting for me. And when I got off the plane, in Dar es Salaam or Mombasa, my uncle again was waiting for me. And they actually treated young passengers quite well. They gave you like a big badge, young person traveling alone. So the hostesses kind of fussed over you. So it was a good experience.
And do you remember the train journey?
Yes, the trains are great. The view of the Rift Valley is amazing. You see, sometimes you even see the lions chasing the antelopes and so on. And also you got lots of these vendors who come on the trains selling you fruit you don't see in Kampala, like plums and mangoes. And so the train journeys were good. And the cafeteria in the train was really good. And then the Gujarati families, mom gave us theplas and chevro and so on, thermos.
Okay, so here was this, carefree kind of growing up, full of activities and secure and, as you say, a little bit sheltered, maybe a little bit innocent, but I think carefree would be a word I would use, yeah?
Conservative.
Yeah.
Cautious.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, Ashok? On the one hand, we talk about it being cautious, but then there's this kind of freedom to go out and to be playing outside, and putting you on the train to go across international borders, sheltered cautiousness, but there's also this freedom.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Which I would say, all the others have also shared with me, and my personal story is very similar. Then something happened in August 1972. What do you remember?
Okay, so we all heard the news instantaneously, like, it was on the radio, it was on TV, it was in the newspapers. So all of us got the same information immediately. And I remember every day people would come to our house, like neighbors, friends, and we would all be talking, what does this mean? What's going to happen to us? Where do we go? And initially, the opinion of all my father's friends was Britain would not accept us. Like every day they were hearing stories about Enoch Powell. And that, in 1968 or 69, Britain had introduced the Commonwealth Immigrants Act, which kind of restricted Asians going to UK without a visa. There was a huge fear that Britain was very anti-immigration. And then maybe this was just a small thing, but you also heard of skinheads beating up Asians in UK. But we just heard many scary stories about UK. My parents were really not decided what to do. And there was, my dad had spent all his working life in Uganda. He was 46 years old at that time. So he actually thought, okay, I have a government job teaching at an African school for the families who worked in the railways. But it was he taught at a school that was entirely black children. And the feedback he was getting from his school was, this doesn't apply to you. This applies to British citizens who have, so we need you and we want you. They were worried, but they didn't do anything about it. We were going to school as normal, actually. But every day when we came home, the only topic was the 90-day rule. That was the only conversation with everybody. And everybody was saying, oh, we're trying to apply for Australia. We're trying to apply for Canada. We're trying Germany, etc. And then there were a few cautious people who say, all those are unknown territories. We're just going back to India where we still have some family. He had started life with an Indian passport. Then because he married a British lady, he had a British protected person passport. And then for a while, he had a Uganda citizenship. I actually had a dual citizenship. Because I was born in Uganda, he had registered me as a Ugandan citizen. And that's the reason I could stay and do A-levels in Kampala. I think you had to be a citizen to continue advanced education. But somewhere along the line, we were all British subjects. So we arrived in UK on UK passports.
And it seems that the men generally, because they were working,
right,
seem to have the Ugandan passports, while the wives tended to still keep the sort of the colonial passport. So that's where I think the anomalies seem to happen. Yeah.
The turning point came when we heard that I think it was Manubhai Madhwani, but one of the most richest and most powerful families, got arrested. And that day, my parents thought, this is serious. This is a game changer. This is a point of no return. We have to do something. So I think my dad, the next day, he woke up at 4 a.m. and he waited in line at the British Embassy in Uganda. And miraculously, that day, he got a visa for us to go to UK. So we got our visa on, say, September 11th. The next day, he stood in another line to buy us all tickets to go to UK. And within 36 hours of getting the visa, we were on a plane. So we literally did almost no packing. Like my dad came home in the evening and he said, guys, we now have your tickets, flights, and we are leaving right now.
And what about going to Kenya, or what about going to Tanzania? Was that an option?
No, those were not options at all, because in both those countries had Africanization policies. Like after around 1968, the whole feeling everyone was Kenya for Kenyans, Tanzania for, and Tanzania was even worse because they were in under the influence of Chinese and Russians. So we noticed that less and less children were coming to school. Like we would hear, oh, so and so went to India, so and so is moving to Canada, etc.
Did things change, say, for example, with your fellow students now that, he made the announcement and, the expulsion was happening? Did the attitudes change?
No, I don't, at a personal level, like friends I had in, Ugandan friends I had in school or our neighbors, life was the same. they were actually very sympathetic. They said, what are you going to do? If you need something, let us know.
મને એક વસ્તુ નથી સમજ પડતી કે ઉતાવળ શું કામ હતી આટલી બધી 3 મહિના આપ્યા હતા તો પછી શું કામ તમે દોડી ગયા
મને લાગે છે એ લોકોને એક તો બીક લાગી કે હવે આર્મી વધારે ડેન્જરસ થાય છે. બીજું એ લોકોને એમ લાગ્યું કે કદાચ બ્રિટિશ લોકો માઇન્ડ બદલાવે તો. અને ત્રીજું એ લોકો સાંભળતા હતા કે ઘણી બાજુ આર્મી છે થોડું લૂંટફાટ કરતી હતી. એટલે if you were in the wrong place at the wrong time with the army, it was getting unsafe.
You mentioned the army. So what do you remember of the security situation?
In Kampala, you would always see troop movements, like 50 or 100 soldiers sitting in one big lorry. And you would see lots of jeeps with army, and they would be parading through the streets of Kampala. And after this 90-day rule, we saw them more and more.
So President Idi Amin made the announcement that all Asians had to leave within 90 days. He would periodically appear on TV, making all kinds of statements and accusations. So Ashok, what did you think about it all?
Just disbelief, and we all thought he was mad. And then we thought the whole world is mad that they're allowing a madman to get away with this. I think he was trying to get revenge for some reason. Somebody had rubbed him the wrong way about Indians. Indians had black servants, so there may have been some resentment on that. Indians were very successful in business, and we definitely did not intermarry with them, which I think was one of his issues.
Your dad got the visa, got the tickets, then you went. So what happened to all your things in the house?
He tried to ship it, like he said he gave it to a company for cargo, but we never received it.
Your father stayed behind with your uncle.
Right.
So
and then he had unfinished business with my uncle, so they both went to India. And I didn't see my father for 4 months.
So while Ashok's family had the right to go to Britain, the nervousness never went away.
In Uganda Argus, which was the main newspaper, which everybody read, it was in English. There was like a full page advertisement by the city councillor Leicester, which basically discouraged you. They said, we have no space, our schools are overcrowded, our hospitals are overcrowded, we don't have any council housing available, jobs are few, our economy is not good. We strongly encourage you not to come to Leicester. There were some army checkpoints, and we were always very nervous, but fortunately nothing bad happened to us. The airport was full of Indians going to UK, and we just got on the plane.
Middle of September, you get on a plane, you stop in Egypt for refueling, and then you land in Stansted.
So at Stansted, they asked us if we had anywhere to go. So we said we don't have anybody. So they said, okay, we're going to send you to a camp. We ended up at a camp called Stradishaw. It's in Suffolk. It's on the other side it's between Cambridge and Bury St. Edmunds. So they put us on a bus there, and it was luck of the draw. We got a house. A lot of people just got bunk beds. So it was a army camp that hadn't been used for a long time. So they had like a cafeteria. I liked playing tennis. I could continue playing tennis and badminton there. For me, it wasn't such a traumatic experience. But for my mother, it was very, very traumatic. She was say 42 years old, and now she was here alone in a completely unknown place, not knowing what to do next. But there was a kind of informal support system amongst all the Gujarati families there. Like everyone tried to help each other. We were one of the first to get to that camp because we were amongst the early people who left early. But every day we would see 2 or 3 busloads come. So I think when we started at the camp, there were maybe 200 people at the camp. And by the time the 90 days was over, I think there were 2,000 people at the camp. So the facilities, we were pretty good. They gave us a house to live in, and that had basic, it was comfortable enough. And we got 3 meals a day. And they actually even gave us small pocket money.
And how long did you stay in the camp?
About 4 months, from September to January. We were offered council housing in Biggleswade. So what happened was somebody from the city council came to the camp and interviewed us. So they interviewed a few families. So they were allowed to pick which families they wanted. And somehow we got chosen. So Biggleswade is a town of 10,000 people. And we were the only Indian family. At that time, it was 100% white. There were no black families either. So we were the first Indian family there. We moved to this council house. We had no furniture. People donated, and then we started buying things secondhand first. And then slowly we made a home. Every time my dad got a paycheck, he would buy carpet or some kitchen utensils. So once we moved to Biggleswade, within a week, I got enrolled in a A-level school there. So I could walk to that school. And within 2 or 3 weeks, my dad found a job as a bookkeeper at a car dealership. He had to start all over again in a different situation. But I think he did the best he could. And then there was an Indian store in Bedford. So once or twice a month, we would all go together on a weekend to the Indian store and buy Indian groceries. Bedford was about 12 miles, so like half an hour at least. So we started in September, so it was nice. Like it was 50, 60 degrees. Maybe you needed a sweater. But then we were very surprised by November that the days are getting short. Living on equator in Uganda, you have 12-hour days. So that was a shock to our system. And by December, we were really miserable. That the howling wind, the cold, dark days, not seeing the sun for days. The first 2 or 3 winters were really bad. Like, took a lot getting used to it.
Okay, so you are enrolled in an A-level college. Your father's working as a bookkeeper. Your mom started working, and then she thought, no, it was too much. So it was quite a contrast to the type of life you had in Kampala.
The way my parents had their relations, you could just send an order to the grocery store and they would pack everything for you. And then somebody would even deliver. So my dad would pay them once a month. He didn't have to pay them every time. My mother had a lot of help there. Like apart from cooking, she didn't have to do much. Whereas in UK, we had to do everything ourselves. We had no money, so we didn't have a washing machine. So we had to go and do laundry. I think we bought a washing machine after 3 years.
And how was it for you to be at the college?
Okay, I went to like a grammar school, and so I was the only Indian, and some English students were nice, and I made a few good friends. And so I'm now 17 years old, and there were like teenage girls, 13, 14, 15. They would just giggle at me, and they would call me Wog, and I experienced some racism. Or they would also call me Paki, and some would say, "Go back where you came from." Whether you liked it or not, you had to do physical education. So I generally picked things you could play inside the gym, like badminton, volleyball. And in the summer, the school had tennis courts, so I would play tennis. So I had a active life.
And were they interested to know where you had about your life, about the history, were they curious about it?
Yeah, a lot of the students were curious, especially the English students who had traveled overseas. Like there was one, uh, there was a clique of students, and one had been to Canada and one had been to Japan. So they were really very interested in what's life like in Uganda. Some wanted to visit East Africa or go to a safari. I look Indian. How come I'm telling them I came from Uganda? Because they felt a black kid would be from Uganda. And the teachers, by and large, were very helpful. I was the first Indian they had seen. I stayed there 18 months, and I had a good experience. I wasn't extremely motivated. I started university in 74. At that time, there was no tuition. Like education was free.
Ashok, so there you are, you've gone to university, you've kind of, started basically shaping your adult life.
Mhm.
So what happened to Uganda? Did you ever visit? Did you ever go back?
I do, but I don't know anybody. But I would really be curious to see the places again, like the house I lived in, the school I went to.
So how would you say, those experiences of Uganda shaped your life?
So the friends I've made, or even my father's friends, are still in my life today. Like the connection we have with them is much closer than any new friendship we've made. And then I have a close friend I've known since I was 4 years old in Toronto, and we still keep in touch. My best friend in Kampala, in Kalolo School, he lives in Leicester, and I visit him every year.
Like what are the main sort of insights and lessons that you would like to share?
We don't have an attachment to material things. Like both. So in my case, we came to UK with one suitcase, and then 17 years later, we came to America with one suitcase. Keep things that bring you joy. I live in a 4-bedroom house with, you know, stuff everywhere. I'm not so attached to anything. And then look at the irony in life today uh, with the COVID-19. We have 2 new cars and there is nowhere to go. The other is be grateful for what you have. Another thing is your passport is very important. It's just an act of God which country you get born in. It's a fluke. But if you get born in the right country, your life is so much easier.
If you would like to share your personal story for a future episode of Expulsion at 50, please get in touch. The email address is expulsion50@gmail.com or on Twitter @expulsion50. Till next time, take care and stay safe.